We all know that the world of events basically requires a ton of grit, a lot of agility, and a lot of being willing to look at change. And so today, Caitlin and I get to share war stories from many years of working together and thinking about how over time things have changed. And Caitlin's a lot younger than me, but when I started my career, fax machines were tech. So I literally just had my office filled top to bottom with binders, where that's how I did everything. I printed all the paper, I carried it with me, and that's how I knew what was going on, versus obviously things have changed over time. And I'm sure you didn't deal with fax machines, but I can guess that probably the last couple of years, like, has your position changed? Has you thought about, as you started your career and as you've grown in that career, what does that change look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely relate to the binder situation. Just thinking back to in-person events, even a couple years ago, we were printing binders of floor plans, walking the halls, checking out the rooms. Now, virtually, rooms are right there on your computer, and you don't have to walk anywhere or check a floor plan or count the number of chairs. Is there enough seats for the audience? So that's been a very big shift. I also think, too, just thinking about hybrid from like full-blown in-person into virtual, there are elements of like, how do we make this hybrid that I think we've always done even at in-person events. So, like, we're in a studio right now. There were still AV production setups full-blown just like this at an in-person event, projecting to a virtual audience while the halls are filled with in-person people. So I think that it's changed, but there's still elements of it that are the same as they were before.
Yeah. Last year when the pandemic hit and my phone started ringing off the hook with people saying, I don't know what a virtual event is. I don't like 90s video games. Like, how is it that I do my job? The first thing is I sort of digested that information for myself was, wait a second, this has always been my job. I have to create an experience for a group of people, and venue is sort of interchangeable, right? Mm-hmm. It could be at the Hyatt or it could be at the Hilton on the waterfront, but how I create that experience is how I'm providing value. What did you see as you've gone through the shift over the last 18 months in terms of what attendees valued before? Because I know if one more damn person complained about the cookie, I was going to lose my mind. I don't know why cookies were so important or food was so important. You don't go to a convention center expecting 5-star food, right? But I think about what mattered to an attendee pre-COVID and then what's happening now in our digital world, and how have you seen that value system shift?
Yeah, I think in the digital world, people are becoming more accustomed to like a very curated experience, and you try to do that as much as you can for in-person, like here's a cookie that you expected to get, but like you're in the digital experience, like where's my cookie? I have these expectations of what I'm going to experience, and I'm coming into it virtually not knowing what the expectation I have is, and then you do it for a year and people are like, oh, no one mentioned in the chat that I should be joining a Zoom link to watch this session, or where do I go to see the keynote? It's like navigating a website, and it's totally different for the audience. But I think in the planning aspect of it, we still, at least as a planner on my side, feel like we need to be mindful of those things and make sure that they are receiving their cookie in the way that they would expect, or even not know that they expected to begin with.
So much of the world has changed. If I think about how I shop, I spend way too much money on Amazon because it knows me. And so it says, oh, Allie, here's 4 more dresses that you might think are cute. And I'm like, add. And so part of what I'm seeing is not just event innovation, but world innovation. If we think about the last couple of years, or if I look at my kids who are 14 and almost 11, the way they consume is so different because they just expect that they go online and that YouTube's going to tell them what shows they actually want to watch. And so I also think human behavior has changed. And so our expectations of how we live our lives and therefore how we attend events is a very different experience from what it used to be.
Yeah, we're all used to like the algorithm choosing for us. It's like, oh, this is a show you like, or oh, you're at this event. These are sessions you'll like based on, content types or whatever theming you're interested in. And then you filter, and all of a sudden that's what you see and that's what you watch. It's like very curated.
I always say though, as meeting planners, when I first got into the industry, it's because I wanted to travel and because I loved good food and experiences. And so I loved the opportunity to be able to create unique experience for people. You know, if it was having them show up to a convention center and there was some sort of cool exhibit in the lobby that they could experience, or if it was getting groups of people together. And in this digital world, I feel like as a meeting planner, our roles have changed significantly. And there isn't a single meeting planner that I know that said, I want to be a meeting planner, which means business analyst, getting into the data. Like that's like the nightmare for any meeting planner, right? Like we don't want to get into spreadsheets. We don't want to get into things that we're not experts in.
Yeah.
So how have you thought about that transition of, you know, you mentioned sort of creating those cookies for attendees, but then how does it actually go from figuring out those experiences to implementing them and doing it correctly with your job changing so significantly?
Yeah, well, there's like a huge production element to it now. Like all of your sessions would happen live in person. So you're like, I'm gonna secure these speakers, they're gonna show up. But now it's, I'm securing these speakers, they're gonna show up, but they're probably showing up multiple of them at the same time in a digital experience. And if you have something live, like a show that's also going on simultaneously, you have to really think about how all of those elements are happening simultaneously but virtually. Yeah. So the production element is one that I think was a huge adjustment. I mean, you know, we're sitting in a studio now, and before when it was in person, I'd probably walk by and be like, oh, it looks like they're doing something super cool over there, but had zero idea or concept of what they're doing meant. So that production value that you're utilizing to add to the experience virtually is definitely a new thing that I think probably a lot of planners from in-person are trying to navigate and make sure that they're catching all the things that would make that curated experience good for the audience.
Yeah, it's so interesting when we think about digital. It really is, you know, you have the ability to make a change in the environment very quickly. So if you're online and you go to a show and it looks really bad and it doesn't look well produced, I'd probably be like, this is not going to be worth my time, and I'm going to leave because I'm not sitting in a room with someone in front of me. There's no human compassion component of it. It's, I judge what's good for my time. And I would agree the production has always been an element where I had a production crew and I was more worried about the logistics around the production versus digitally, the event is the production.
Right.
And even coming from my own perspective of last year doing the keynote at Untethered, and I was sitting at my desk and sort of anxious, and I was by myself. And of course we had someone in the green room, the Zoom room, that was helping us, but literally I had playback on a second computer that, because there was a delay of the keynote, it was like all of a sudden I was repeating back to myself and I was presenting live and I started freaking out without knowing what was going on. And so when I think about doing Untethered today at the studio tour, there's also just a different level of being in a production studio, having an experienced team that is able to tell you exactly where to look, sort of how to speak, you know, make sure that you're interacting with the panelists in the right way. And because of the fact that that is sort of the outward appearance to our event, being able to rely on partners that are experienced in that area, because I'm not going to have the 20 years of experience there, I think is so important. So how do you think about your vendor portfolio and how to determine what a good partner looks like, specifically as it pertains to production?
Oh my gosh, that's a hard question. I guess I would say in terms of production, now knowing a year of this, what to look for, you can have a conversation with a production team or any vendor that helps with, you know, digital streaming or the platform, what's it being hosted in. A lot of people know what to do now, but you can tell when you have a conversation with a person if they're really going to help you make that experience. Somebody could say, I know how to do this and I'll do it for you, but a valuable vendor or person, team in production is one that helps you drive that experience and not just say, I'll do whatever you tell me. They'll help you figure out what you want to make and make that happen with you. So it's kind of, I think, a partnership thing and not just oh, these people say they can do this, let's have them do it.
And there's such a deep level to production that I think we sometimes don't understand because of our limited purview of being in events. But you think about the run schedule of every second, who's saying what and who's on screen. And I would never watch TV if it was just the same person on the same backdrop and I was just sitting there for an hour. That would be the most boring show in the world. So we also have to think about, how are we switching things in and out? What are the backgrounds? What's the motion? What's the animation? How do we bring interest? And so I agree with you that partnership needs to be there, because that's their expertise, and we can learn from them. But then also it helps us to look at, here's the experts in production, what they tell me, and now here's how I can build the experience around that production level also.
Totally agree.